I'm Marcy McDonald, the online course doctor, here to help you improve your online courses by unpacking what works, what doesn't work, and what you can do to make yours better. Today, we're back to my interview series. We'll be talking with course creator Jennifer Simonetti-Bryan, whose initial course grossed more than $1 million the first year alone, and is still earning her royalties. The subject? Wine, my friends. Let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. Jennifer is the fourth woman to attain the international title of Master of Wine, MW for short. Now, to give you an idea of just how hard it is to achieve that title, it has been awarded to only 47 people in the entire United States. Jennifer has trained thousands in her industry. She judges in international wine and spirits competitions, and she was honored with an international tasting trophy for her palate. Jennifer's also a renowned author of several books on wine, including The 1 Minute Wine Master, Pairing with the Masters, a definitive guide to food and wine pairing, and Rosé Wine, a guide to drinking pink. I love that title. Now, in addition to being a TEDx speaker with over 100,000 views, Jennifer has been featured multiple times on national TV, including NBC's Today Show, Fox Business, Fox News, CNN, Money, CBS. I could go on and on. She has also been featured in world-class publications ranging from the New York Times, Fortune, and Forbes to, the Oprah magazine, Shape, Food and Wine, Wine Spectator, and many, many more. Now, because she's a food and wine pairing expert, she's also hosted seminars with the likes of Rachel Ray, Bobby Flay, and Jacques Pepin. In other words, she is an expert among experts. Her 5 courses on wine include the Everyday Guide to Wine, the Everyday Guide to Spirits and Cocktails, and 3 guides on the wines of France, Italy, and California. I first met Jennifer when we worked together on the Everyday Guide to Wine, produced by the Great Courses, also known as the Teaching Company. And we still work together as I've been coaching her while she crafts her first independently produced courses. Hey, Jennifer, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, I could not be happier. And I couldn't be happier working with you on my courses.
Thanks, Jen. Now, let's jump right in there with what I happen to know is your hardest experience making courses. Can you tell us a bit about your first course, which you had to do in what I would call an insanely short time? So what obstacles did you face and how did you overcome them?
When I was introduced to the Great Courses, the president at the time told me, oh yes, it's usually a 12-month to 18-month process, and it'll be really wonderful. We've got people for you to work with. And then after I signed the contract, it was, yeah, we needed you to do that in 2 months. So it was like, 8 weeks. So Marcy came into the fray and they were like, if you're gonna do it, this is the woman you're gonna do it with, because if anyone can, she can. And what I didn't know at the time was that no professor at the Great Courses or the Teaching Company had done a course in that time frame. But Marcy never let me do that. She was just, calm as can be allowed. We can do this. We can do this. And I didn't know that this was not done before. And so sometimes you need to do away with certain mindsets and say, okay, I'm going to do what I can, not what I should. And I actually got it done. One of the biggest things I learned from you, Marcy, and this was about structure and simplicity. And this needed to be said. And you said this early on, and it helped me not to hyperventilate, because it was like, okay, simplicity, be simple. When you're getting overwhelmed, just keep coming back to be simple. Marcy had to keep bringing me back to, look, your audience doesn't know why you need to know about Bordeaux, doesn't know why champagne is all that. You have to tell us why. It has to be really clear. And at the end of writing each lecture, I could step back and go, okay, well, I know why I'm doing this. I know why I'm telling this to the camera. And you feel good about it. So that was other than writing 5,000 words a day, that was probably the best advice that I had ever received, and it made the process a lot easier than it could be. And I know I would not have been able to do that without Marcy. I know that.
Well, thank you very much. So just to quickly recap, keep it simple. Look for the why in everything you're doing. Don't include something just because it's always been included before or someone else says to include it. Make sure your audience needs to know, and make sure you have a clear, cogent, single idea about what every lesson is about.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Your courses have always been very interactive, which is a challenge for a lot of people teaching online. So when you're not recording with a live audience, people aren't sure how to handle that. But you manage quite nicely. So what tips do you have for making the teaching feel like it's involving the audience and for keeping them engaged throughout the lesson?
The reason why you don't see wine on TV as a show, or you haven't seen them as successful at it, is because you can't go, it doesn't translate well. So in order to make it translate well to people at home who are watching or taking this course wherever they are, you have to be able to engage. So number one, to keep it engaging, you don't want to be monotone in your voice. So if you're monotone, it doesn't really, it makes them fall asleep. So you change the tone of your voice. And this is one thing that you also taught me as well. You bring up your voice high, and you can bring your voice low. You can be louder, or you can be softer. It wakes people up to come back to your course. In order to engage with them, one of the things that we had done, and we played around with this idea for a while, and actually it worked better than we thought, was quizzes. And at the end of each lecture, which were a half hour apiece, I created this little quiz at the end. So it's like, okay, I here have a wine. So you don't know what this wine is, but it's got, I'm just letting you know, it's got elements of citrus, some grassy aromas. It's light in body, it's white. And so people are like, Sauvignon Blanc. It really engaged them to think, and they wanted to know if they were right. So that was one way that we had achieved that. The other way that I thought was great, and because of the world of technology now, having things that are on the screen that can demonstrate. So if you're drawing a line and all these kinds of things, you're able to show that graphically, and that can be very engaging in pulling people in.
Right. It's one of the reasons why I love working with video for teaching, because you have this additional layer you can use to amplify the teaching. And most people don't realize that when they're just trying to knock something out with PowerPoint and voiceover, that you're missing a huge element, which is the magic of video that makes your teaching so much richer. The other points you had to say about talking directly to your audience and kind of testing them, but in a very fun way, about what they had learned, I think that set people up so that every subsequent lesson that they watched, they were paying much more attention. So you kind of pre-engaged them so that they could test themselves.
Yes, set the precedent.
Terrific. Yes, set the precedent for it. And also so critical, the idea of using your voice as a tool to let people know what's coming up, what's important, build a sense of drama, all kinds of things, which does keep us more engaged. So nice and summary there. I really appreciate that. So you're moving on now to create courses, a series of courses actually, that you're creating independently. Now, what's different about making a course with a giant producer like the Great Courses? What things are you keeping as you make your own course, and what things are you doing differently out of necessity or out of choice?
Yeah, I wish I could keep the entire team that was there that did all the graphics and all the production and all of that. That was a lot easier when you have a team doing that. Well, what I'm doing differently is I have freedom now. when you're not working with a large company that not only has deadlines, but they want to make sure you do things in a certain way, you have the freedom to be able to express yourself the way you may not if you're working with someone else. So I remember in the beginning of the course we worked on together, we had this elaborate, gorgeous opening with 36 glasses of wine, because from the Master of Wine exam, I had to identify 36 wines blind. So we had 36 beautiful wine glasses set up with different kinds of wines from all over the world. And I had to explain what the Master of Wine was and blah, blah, blah. Well, at the end of the entire series, the president at the time asked me to come back in and do it again. And he said the reason was you didn't really go into the explanation of why we should care that you're a Master of Wine. And in my heart, I sat there thinking, oh, this is gonna sound like I'm being arrogant, but I got such flack for that. I got such flack for I mean, not the 36 wines, because that was beautiful, but for me, enunciating and going through the whole process of Master of Wine and all this kind of stuff, I got on flack on the social media and people putting in responses to the teaching company going, boy, she's really pointing at herself, saying, look at me, look at me. I'm like, dang it, I should have listened to myself. So doing it independently, I don't have to do that. I can go on my own intuition and go in directions that I want to go to. Having said that, one of the things that I'm keeping is making really sure that I'm paying attention to my audience. For me now, that is wine students and wine lovers, but wine students in particular for Master Wine Online. But I think that I have to speak to that particular audience, and that is something that you taught me early on in our first course.
Right, and you know your audience here really well. The challenge that the Great Courses had at the time was that they didn't have an audience that understood your credentials. So even though it was heavy-handed for people who are already in your industry, it did help people who weren't, but who were interested in wine. And so you always have to make some adjustments based on who your audience is. Now I think it's marvelous that you can talk directly to really your home audience. And it shows in what I've been watching you do, the choices you're making with what you include and how you're explaining it. It's dead on for your audience, which is really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's much easier and a much warmer reception than it's kind of like cold calling. Do you want to cold call somebody and sell something, or do you want to already go to someone who knows who you are and they know what you're about? So my courses now are geared towards people who know what an MW is. And people who want to attain that title. So that's a warm audience as opposed to a cold audience. And that makes it much easier to start with than people who have no idea who you are.
Absolutely. So recently you and I were talking about the value of working from a full script, what that enables you to do, how you can cover things thoroughly, not stray off track, but also the importance of getting off that full script from time to time. So can you share your story about that so that we understand why both are so important?
Okay, so yeah, I went kicking and screaming, and Marcy, the Great Courses asked me to write all the scripts in advance. So a half-hour lecture was about 5,000 words a piece. So in order to get everything on time, I was writing about 5,000 words a day. And so I sent in 5,000 words. And of course, after I wrote it and being on to the next thing, I totally forgot what I wrote. So when we actually started filming, I was so on the training wheels of, I need the teleprompter. I can't deviate from the teleprompter. I was terrified of saying the wrong thing. I was going to screw it up. And in fact, a couple of times, when I did go off script, I flubbed a lot of words. Like my favorite is New Zealand. It's a very sleepy country. And I didn't think I said it that way. And I remember being indignant in the studio saying, Marcy, I didn't say that. And you were giggling with the other people in the control room saying, yeah, you did. And I'm like, play it back. Sure enough, I said New Zealand instead of New Zealand. And so you don't know about that. So but I was really on the teleprompter. The problem with that, and you see the difference, is when you have a teleprompter and you have a tendency, your eyes not only do this as you're reading, and so you get to change how your face goes and, you know, making sure people don't think you're looking at it, which takes practice, but it sounds more monotone. When it's just you talking off the cuff, it sounds more of a conversation piece. And people like having conversations with you as opposed to, I am going to lecture and I'm going to tell you about this right now. I saw the results side by side, and it was stark. And so once you can get those training wheels off of getting off the line, word for word, line by line from the teleprompter, do it.
Yeah, the difference was amazing in your delivery. And one of the things that we did was to call out places in your script where we could put in just a little notation in brackets, anecdote about teaching wine, or anecdote about tasting salmon, something like that, where we found the stories that you were really comfortable with and that really brought some animation to your delivery.
Well, the other thing I remember that you were saying to me, and that I had done after the first course was, after you write your script, say the words out loud, because it's amazing how it looks great on paper, fabulous in black and white. But when you start to articulate it in your words, you're flubbing up, and you cannot link these two things together, and you end up tripping over your own tongue with certain words that are linked together. And I remember you pausing me at times like, let's just change the sentence. It's not working for you. Then you keep forgetting your lines after that, or whatever it is. Let's just change the sentence. So saying the whole script out loud in advance will help you tremendously with the process.
Practice aloud, two of my favorite words. So we have just a couple minutes left. Can you give us a little heads up, a little preview of the courses you're working on now, which I think are going to be coming out at the beginning of 2019, maybe?
Yes, I am developing courses right now that are around tasting wine blind. And a lot of people think that it's magic, or they think it's hocus pocus, where you can take a glass and say, I know it's this grape, I know it's from this vineyard, and I know it's this vintage. I mean, it took me a good decade to train my palate to be able to do that, but it's not as much magic as you think. It's kind of like train yourself for a marathon. But so my course is about there's a beginner kind of primer, not a beginner, but a primer, because these are wine students already. And then there's an advanced course, those that are either going for the Master Sommelier or for the Master of Wine, that they really need to fine tune and hone in their smell and their tasting and palate abilities to be able to identify wines blind.
I'm excited for you, and I can testify that I've been watching the content as it develops, and it's solid. It's really going to be genuinely helpful, which is the goal. So before we wrap up, any other words of wisdom for online course creators?
Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be compassionate to yourself, because some days you're going to go, I am a genius. And there are going to be other days you're going to be like, I'm such a moron. So be kind to yourself, because, and that's another good reason to have a coach there, because they keep you even keel, you know, because you're going to have these days, but to keep on that path, you know, you need someone there to be with you. So they say no man is an island. So even making sure you have someone there with you, because it can get really lonely.
That is great advice, Jennifer. So thanks so much. Now, friends, be sure to check below the video for links so that you can learn more about wine through Jennifer's courses, or if you're a serious lover of wine and want to perhaps study for one of those exams, you could sign up for her upcoming courses. Get on that wait list. Now, you can also sign up for weekly guidance and tips from me, your wonderful online course doctor. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time.